Live. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Sisterhood webinar that Nirmal and I have been wanting to do for so long, because it's just really exciting, because everywhere we go to speak and disseminate our information for Women for One, what is everybody always saying, Nirmala?
What is it? People say a lot of things to us.
Sisterhood. We're talking about sisterhood, Nirm.
Oh, yes, sisterhood. Well, sisterhood is at the center of everything that we do at Women for One, but it's also, I think, what sets us apart from a lot of other organizations that are working with the feminine and with women's empowerment, because it is truly everything that we are doing. And there are aspects of sisterhood that we talk about and get into that we just really don't see in a lot of other arenas. And we notice that people get extremely excited when we've done a sisterhood workshop in a variety of other places. I know that Kelly has done it in some places, and we were both teaching a retreat at Kripalu last year, and there were tons of people who came through for this evening where anybody could come. And people were really excited by the topic of sisterhood. So it gets people really fired up, and we hope that all of you feel the same way, because we have a lot of really cool material for you today.
We do. And, it's really funny. Nirmal and I have been applying to speak at the Omega Institute for several years now, regarding power storytelling and everything that Women for One represents. And we decided, you know what, let's just apply to speak about sisterhood. And within a week, Nirmala, we got accepted.
It was like 2 days.
We got accepted as faculty for this fall, which we'll share more information with you later about. And it's about sisterhood. So it's pretty amazing what that topic brings up for all of us these days. And we're going to dive into that today. So if there's any questions, remember, raise your hand. We're going to do some sharing, some popcorn ideas. And Darcy can help you if you have any tech issues. Just put them inside the chat box. Okay? Excuse me? Oh, go ahead. Can you look at it? There is one hand raised up right now. And Darcy is looking. Okay, let's move on, and then Darcy will handle it. Right, Darcy? Is that how we work? Perfect. Okay, so for those of you that don't know about me and about Nirmala, after we just did this little informal intro, I'm the founder of Women for One, and I think most of you would know that if you're signed up for this webinar. We have over 1,200 truth tellers from over 50 countries on our site. They share their powerful stories. We've also created a lot of different resources for women, including courses, in-person retreats. We also have truth teller tours where women, and one of our amazing truth teller that spoke at our tour in Seattle, Beth, is on right now, where women get up and it's like a TED Talk with heart and sisterhood. So you have this huge sisterhood in the audience supporting you and speaking your truth and speaking the lessons that you learned. And you learn from what the person is saying, but these women get to be held in a safe space to share their truth, which is incredible. So I know, Beth, I remember you saying how wonderful it was, and you were such a beautiful storyteller and truth teller. So thank you for that. So my partner Nirmala and I, she has been working with me for over 4 years now. It was the greatest experience and a true honor. See, it's amazing. These women, I mean, they're so courageous getting up and speaking their truth. It's so powerful. I'd love for some of you to create a truth teller tour that we can help you do it in your community, or watch some of the truth teller tour videos that we've shared. They're amazing. Okay, so on to Nirmala and me. Nirmala helped me write my book. That's how we initially met. We got connected through a dear friend of both of ours. And then she became the creative strategist and editor at Women for One, and basically has just been my partner in crime for the past several years, and a dear soul sister that I would call a sister as well. So Nirmala, you want to talk about yourself for a second?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, basically what Kelly said, I do a lot of things, wear a lot of different hats, but the primary one is as Kelly's creative partner. And together we have developed a number of resources for the Women for One community. And that includes the courses that we've created together that have all of these incredible topics, like stepping into your messy brilliance. And Your Messy Brilliance is, of course, the title of Kelly's book. And most recently, we also developed a course on how to have the hard conversations with people. And I think what's really cool about our working relationship is that basically everything that we create together arises from like these conversations where we sit down together and we think, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And in fact, I live in New York and Kelly's in Seattle. So we are basically like on opposite coasts, and we maybe see each other twice a year, but we saw each other in January, you know, had these really incredible conversations. We'd be sitting down, having coffee together or wine, and just basically, I mean, our relationship is, it feels like more of a soul sister connection and a creative partnership than just us working together. And there's this really incredible energy that is just uncontainable when we get together and we sit and have these conversations about what's up for us and what's happening in our lives. And that always gets translated over into the work that we do. So it really comes from us, from our hearts, from also just like the questions and concerns that are raised by the people in our communities. And sisterhood is something that is really near and dear to both of us. And, you know, it's been sisterhood for both of us, I think, has been a journey that's been rewarding and challenging. And that's why we really wanted to talk about it with all of you tonight, because it's something that there's something for everyone in that topic. And we realize that, you know, in bringing our own experiences to light, we have the pleasure of getting to hear from other women what sisterhood means to them. And there's so many incredible stories and so much heartbreak and so much potential for healing. So that's what we're here for tonight.
Absolutely. Especially, I love the opportunities for healing because that's really what we're all about at Women for One. So, do you want to start with our meditation? Because this is what we do when we start any retreat or in-person event or webinar. We really just want to take 2 minutes to come together and unite as a group. I think it's also important when you're listening to this recording, try not to fast forward it through. We live in such a fast-paced world right now. I did yin yoga 2 nights ago, and it was hour and 15 minutes, and I thought it was going to feel like an eternity, and it felt like 10 minutes because my brain and my body were craving to slow down into that beautiful long tide. So Nirmala and I have a meditation. It's like 2 to 3 minutes. So if you could close your eyes and go ahead, Nirm.
Yeah. So yeah, just go ahead, and if it feels comfortable for you right now, you can close your eyes and really just get attuned to your inner state. Just noticing your body, noticing any places of tension without any need to change anything. Just allow yourself to take a few deep breaths. And coming into your inner space, knowing that it's okay to let go of any distractions, anything else that might be on your mind from earlier today. You can just put that aside for just these moments. And as you're taking time to breathe in and out, just explore letting go of all of the things that you tend to identify with in your life. And you can start by just letting go of your name, and then your job title, and any other labels like mom, wife, friend, sister, daughter, whatever it is that you identify with to inform yourself and others about who you are. So you can just imagine yourself as a blank slate, all of these labels gone. Because all of those things are just what you do, how you label yourself, and it doesn't really tell you who you actually are. And now, try and let go of time if you can. Just imagine there's no past and no future you. And then let go of your gender. And let go of your nationality. And let go of your body configuration and anything that you want to let go of that feels constricting and restricting. Any thoughts, any beliefs that might hold you back or limit you. Just imagine all of that just floating away like a cloud. And now ask yourself, what happens when you get out of the driver's seat and you just let life take care of itself without you having to effort or try, even just for a few minutes? What's it like to surrender? And it's okay if you don't know, or if that feels like too daunting of a task to let go. Just asking that question about what is it like to let life take care of itself. That's enough for now. And as you're just letting this question unfold, you might not have any answers, and that's okay. I want you to take 3 deep breaths, focusing on a deep, deep inhalation. This is the feminine breath. The inhalation is receiving from life, allowing it to enter you and enter your cells and fill you up with nourishment. So make those inhalations extra long. And then exhaling anything that isn't yours, any voices, beliefs, ideas, tension, just letting that go on the exhale. And just let yourself enter into the void of non-doing. This is the place of stillness and creativity, where everything is done without you having to do anything.
Mm.
And when you feel ready, you can just slowly come back into the space.
Thank you, Nirmala. Wasn't that yummy? Ugh. That grounding is so important, and I have it on my list. I hate to say it, I'm one of those women that makes lists, and if I to do it every day, I don't know about you, but I need that I need it all day, but thank you. So I want to go on to outcomes today. That's the first thing, and this webinar is really meant to be participatory and also to get you to an awareness and connect all of us so we can all learn from one another. So this isn't just about a teaching. This is about us getting an awareness of where we have patterns and wounds, and that's our first outcome. We really want that awareness to come to be. And Nirmal and I were actually talking because we're writing a new book about sisterhood. So this is kind of exciting to start with a webinar around it and doing Omega in the fall about sisterhood. But we were talking about doing several of these over the next several months, every other week. And so we will be sending you some information about that at the end, because we'd love to dive into different topics around sisterhood. I think it's powerful. We'll gather information, hopefully get more stories on the site about the power of sisterhood. And we want to hear from you about that. So hopefully you can email us about what you want to hear about regarding sisterhood, because this first one really is about you and us. And we only have an hour, so we have to kind of dive in quickly and address a few of these outcomes. So the next outcome that I want to talk about is the in real life friendship, and how it provides more joy and fulfillment, because we've gotten to the society, as you all know, that we're always online. Or I don't know about you, but I can't even keep up with my texts these days. Everybody has gone to texting and having texting relationships. And I'd love for everybody to raise their hand if they really feel that way, because it's pretty incredible how much we're going to that space. And I know for my children, they're lonely. I've got 6 kids ages almost 20 to 25 this year. And a lot of them they're lonely because they're having these text relationships and connections with people. While the internet and everything provides great things, I think it's really powerful, important that we look each other in the eye and we connect in the physical form. I mean, Nirmal and I talk about needing to see each other more because of that, because we get so much more creative work done when we're together. And I'm sure all of you can relate. I addressed the third outcome, which is about that epidemic of isolation and loneliness. And I really want to talk about how being transparent and vulnerable meaning like when you're addressed with one of your issues, because I've got news for you guys. We're not all perfect. None of us are. So, when you have something where you screwed up and, you need to own it. And if we can own it and be vulnerable about, we're not perfect, we're trying, our intent is good, I think that can provide more connection and safety for our sisters in our relationships in general. I believe that deeply. And then the most important one is to clarify what you want from sisterhood, right? If we don't have clarity and intention, we're not going to create anything. It'll be all over the place. It'll be messy, right? Which is messy is great. But if we have clarity around what we want, if we get an awareness of what our patterns are and who we draw into our lives and the wounds we've created for ourselves and that have happened to us, and then also making a list of like, what do you want in a sisterhood circle? Like, I know, I was going through a rough patch a couple of months ago, and I talked to Neil about it, and I was like, I don't have any women around here, and I'm in Seattle. For some reason, I've made a choice to not connect with a lot of women around my spiritual belief system. And I felt really lonely about it. And so I decided to create an intention to move forward and connect with more women that are on that path with me, that are powerful about looking at their lives. And, I see that Janice is on here. Janice, you were in my healing school with me. I've moved away from that. So I really want to come back to that. And that's my new intention, is to draw people into my life that can support that spiritual belief system, and why we're all here. So that's really what we're planning on doing today. We can only address just those things, but we're really excited about the future as well. So let's start with, and I would love for everyone to use their computers or their phones and write in the chat box, what you think sisterhood is. Let's all get a shared vision and understanding of sisterhood, because I think it's really important that we're all on the same page. So I'm going to look in this chat box and see if anybody is writing anything, and I will talk until they do, because I have lots to talk about around sisterhood. So sisterhood for me, and I've written about this in my first book, is not just obviously your blood sisters, but your mothers, your friends, your aunts, your female friendships, sometimes your male friendships, because, I actually call my best guy friend my sister, because he embodies the feminine so much. He's like one of my sisterhood people. I include him in all my sisterhood things. But I also think the sisterhood, and some people would dare to disagree with me on this one, is the people that challenge you and teach you the most. They're not always the nice ones. They're the ones that bring you the lessons. They're the ones that you feel triggered by and go into kind of an emotional response around. I think those are your sisters as well, because they're there, as we know, to teach us huge lessons. And I have several of those in my life. And I really try to look at them as those teachers as much as possible. I am human and I get angry and triggered, but I think it's really important if we could do that and look at that around our sisters. I think it's important. Is anybody typing what they think about sisterhood? I don't see anything yet. I'd love.
Yeah, it looks like Jacqueline typed something.
For me, it's a safe space to be who we are without judgment, to give and receive support and say what needs to be said. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it hurt, but still good. Totally. right there. Especially the sometimes it's good and sometimes it hurts, because, you know, it hurts because some of them are teachers, but it also sometimes hurts because it's the truth and we need to learn from it, right? And we need to be vulnerable and connect and understand the other person. And then Patricia said, sisterhood is a powerful tribe of women who will heal the planet and humanity. Sorry, we will restore the balance on earth and the universe. The Dalai Lama said it's best the Western women will heal the planet. Yes, I think all women will heal the planet. I dare disagree with the Dalai Lama. I think it's all women. I don't think it's just the Western woman, but I love that. So yes, you know, I also want to clarify, you know, for women that have that have partners that are women that are, you know, and or they're bisexual. I'm not talking about, and Nirmal and I agree, we're not talking about romantic relationships here. We're really narrowing down into sisterhood. Even though I have dear friends that are partners, their wives, and I would call them, they would call themselves part of their own sisterhood. So I'd love to kind of dissect that someday. But right now we're really just focused on that friendship sisterhood today. And then the last thing I want to talk about around this is if you've read my book, I talk about this feminine thread that I've connected to. And I started because every time I interview someone on my podcast, I'd have this vision of this feminine thread. And I'm going to do a reading at the end about it. But basically, it's this thread of sisterhood and women. And it's like this bright, white, teeming, like electric vibration light that is messy, of course, and connecting all women from past, future, and present. And I feel it teeming through me when, like tonight, when I'm speaking with you and when I'm interviewing someone, and it grounds me because I feel uplifted and connected and supported by all the sisters of the earth and all of their higher selves. You know, sometimes we don't want to deal with the lower self and the wounds, but I really tap into that higher self with that sisterhood and that feminine thread. And then Beth says, someone who I believe has my best interest in heart and who have given permission to tell me the hard things I need to hear. I love that. You know, I really appreciate that. And it takes a long time for some women to get to that place where they can do that with each other and feel safe. Because I've been ghosted by a lot of women when I have been direct. And for those of you that know me, I'm pretty direct, and decided that I'm not going to take that personally anymore. And then Janice said, I like the fluidity with which we can communicate, finish each other's thoughts, relate to what each other is feeling, thinking. Resolving arguments seems easier with women when we get to the emotional root. Oh, I love that, when we get to the emotional root, because sometimes I don't find it's easier because I feel like there's this power struggle or everybody deals with it differently. But I love when we get to the emotional root, it is easier because women are such great communicators, right, Nirmala?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is definitely sort of one aspect of the feminine that is really important, that we are such great communicators. And we're going to talk about this as we sort of dive into looking at sisterhood wounds, but it's almost like there's like the light of the feminine, and then there's also the shadow. So with the being such empathic and wonderful and sensitive communicators, there's also the shadow side of sometimes taking things too personally, or being overly sensitive, or sometimes assuming that the person on the other end might be able to read your mind. So being a bit more passive aggressive in communication. So these are all things that we kind of need to look at as we're balancing out, just our own sort of personal and collective strengths when it comes to sisterhood, and also the stuff that you can sort of see as being the shadow side, which we're also going to dive into in a little bit.
Awesome. Okay, so moving forward. So we talked about how we define sisterhood, right? And I know, Nirmala, you've talked about moving away from superficial relationships. I want to talk just for a minute about what happened to me and just give a little vignette really briefly last week, because it's been a hell of a year for me. I just got to be honest. I like a redo on 2020, to be honest. I have a lot of personal challenges going on, and what I'm finding is, as much as I have some resistance to doing work right now, it helps me because it keeps me grounded. And believe it or not, like, all of you being here tonight helps me and supports me in my own sisterhood. So my best friend's husband had a major stroke. And I was actually going in for a medical procedure the next day. So it was one of those, everybody's in crisis at the same time. And I just made a decision what my priority was in life. And my priority is my best friend, because I have one sister, but it's a long story. She's younger. But I didn't grow up with sisters. Michelle has been my best friend for 30 years in North Carolina, and she needed me. And as much as we talk from the intellect around sisterhood, I want to share from my heart an experience I had, because you go into a situation when someone needs you, even if they're your best friend or your soulmate or someone, and you just go, I have to be there. It's loyalty. It's showing up when you need to be there. And I was questioning it the whole way I was going there. I was like, okay, I have to rearrange my life. I hope she's okay with me coming. I'm just going to intervene in this, and I'm just going to be there for her. I'm just going to hold space for her. So I fly across the country and I go pick up her kids. I take them to dinner. I get texts from her about all the groceries to get. She's dealing with her husband. And she had come home and she walked out the door. And I want you to feel this in your heart. She walked out the door of her house. This is a woman that never cries. She's kind of my grounder. I'm always crying. And she looked at me and she collapsed in my arms sobbing. And why I'm sharing this with you is because that's what we need to do for our sisters. That's what we need to do. We have to show up and catch them in our arms when they need us the most. And Beth, I know you've been there. You've shown up for people. You've been held by people. So I know you get that. But I just want to share, like, this isn't about the intellect. This isn't about always the future. This is about our hearts and about making that powerful intention and choice to show up for our sisters. So I just thank you for listening and holding that space. I just wanted to share that. It was a powerful experience of mine to ground into the fact that that's what we do for the people in our lives that we love. Sorry, I'm kind of thrown off now. Naomi, you want to take over for a second?
Sure. So, I mean, I think that's such a beautiful example of what true sisterhood is. And I think it's also just interesting to note that just throughout, I would say throughout much of human history, women have been connected to one another in this way. Throughout history, throughout different cultures, I mean, women connecting, like whether it's through sort of like the red tent kind of thing, where you have generations of women being together, sharing their stories, sharing their wisdom, leaning on each other. That has been our truth for as long as humans have been around. And if you look at it, it hasn't been until fairly recently, when we've kind of split off into like these isolated nuclear families and people are much more disconnected, at least in the Western world, than they used to be, that sisterhood feels like this thing that can be so elusive and so rare. And we see so many people struggling with loneliness, but it's really kind of a part of our legacy as women to connect with one another in these really deep and profound ways. And I always find it really funny that there are so many women that I meet who are, for them, the primary person in their life is like their spouse or their partner. And it blows my mind. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I also think that that's kind of it's a newer phenomenon. Like women have had each other's backs like since the dawn of time. And it's just in us. There's something about the ways in which we draw solace and comfort from each other that's just really special. And I feel it like in a room full of women. The energy is it's electric. There's something special and catalyzing, and there's also a way in which we're mirrors for one another, and we have this experience of being able to dive really, really into our deep waters. But the thing is, that can sometimes be really uncomfortable
and messy.
You dive into your deep waters, you might also find, your monsters and your sharks. And that's also what we bring up in each other. So it isn't just like love and fun and being there for each other. In some ways, we can also be one another's worst enemies. And I think this is where what we think of as what Kelly and I have talked about as sisterhood wounds, where those really come into play. And we actually also have this handout.
Miriam, can I interrupt you real quick? I'm going to put the handout out, but yeah. Rosie had a question. So I wanted to ask Rosie if she wanted to ask the question in the chat box or Do you want me to unmute you so you can talk? Yes, you're unmuted. Wait, talking permitted. Unmute. I get. There you go. She's still muted, hon. Rosie, do you want to type in the chat box what your question is, and then we can try to figure out how to unmute you so you can ask a question, and we'll just move on until Darcy can figure that out. Up, and Patricia raised her hand too. Patricia, do you want to talk for a second? Oh, it's not letting me. Okay, we're going to let Darcy address this, and we'll come back to Patricia and Rosie. Let me put this up for you, Nirmala. I'm going to share my screen. And then,
yeah, and this was also, this particular handout, you should have received it in one of your previous emails. So
it's coming.
Types of sisterhood wounds. I mean, and this is not meant to really be exhaustive, but I think that just as I was saying earlier, you know, there's like a light side and there's also a shadow side to sisterhood. And I think it's really important for us to acknowledge the shadow side, to look at it, to look at some of our own issues and some of our own wounds that can sometimes get in the way of us experiencing intimacy with other women. And so I think a really big one, and you know, you can look at these, there's so many, this is just like the tip of the iceberg, but betrayal and backstabbing, that's one that I know I hear about a lot. Comparison, I know that's something that I've experienced, which can also lead to a sense of competition, feeling like, you know, there isn't enough to go around. Only one person is allowed to shine. When really it is our innate nature to shine together. We're like beacons for one another, but sometimes it doesn't always feel that way. So I think this is a good time to really think about what some of your sisterhood wounds might be, because we know that even though sisterhood is one of the most powerful things we can experience, I'm sure that every single one of you who's here has your own wounds and your own stories and experiences, and some of those can be very painful. I mean, I can think back to when I was, you know, 7 or 8 years old, and my best friend in grade school just stopped talking to me and just ignored me and didn't talk to me at all after that. And it's funny to think back on something that happened such a long time ago, but it is still a wound to this day for me. So the experience of being ghosted, the experience of communication being cut off right in the middle, is something that's extremely disturbing to me. And I know that a lot of it has to do with that original wound of trusting somebody and then having them become a totally different person the next day. And so I know that for myself, I have a lot of wounds around trust. How much of myself can I really give to this person? How much can I let myself show up? Are they just going to, at some point, walk away and turn away and abandon me? So even though kind of on the outside, I think I come across to a lot of people as being really strong and being really independent, there is, for me, there is like a lot of fear and abandonment that I experienced when I was like 7 or 8 years old. And that these are things that stay with us, and we might see them as being really minor, but almost all of us can trace our own experiences and wounds around sisterhood back to these original wounds that happened with us. And this could be, you know, with our own literal sisters, with our mothers, with friends. And a lot of times these are themes that just, they tend to continue in our lives without our even noticing them. And to the point where sometimes we find ourselves demonizing other women. I mean, I know so many women, Kelly and I have talked about this, the women who are like, oh, well, I don't have any women friends. I get along better with men, and women are catty and women are bitches. And that in and of itself, that's a judgment and a story that to me says a lot about the person who harbors it. As opposed to the people that she's judging, the women that she might be judging as being catty or not worth hanging out with. So it's really wonderful to look at the things that the beliefs that we've internalized about other women. Even if we love women, we might have amazing women in our lives, but what are the wounds that you have as you're looking at this worksheet? What comes up for you? What are some of the stories that you have, that might be connected to things that have been themes in your life for a long time?
And does anybody like relate, obviously, to some of these? Because I relate to a lot of them.
All of them.
And I used to think, because I've had challenges with men in my life, but women have been my support and my love. In the past probably 3 years since my book was launched, I've had a lot of sisterhood challenges with my mother and with friends. And, I was like, wow, okay, I'm going to dive in here too, because I'm all about, my values are loyalty, and when I feel betrayed or not shown up for, like I would show up for someone else, that's the story I tell myself. I feel like people don't care for me, and that's my story, because everybody has different values. Anyway, so I'd love to hear from all of you. I have to stop sharing the screen so I can see your comments and people can talk, but I think all of you have those worksheets, and definitely the betrayal is big for me too, Beth, right? I mean, I love what people are saying here. If our intent is to be of service and not have an agenda to rescue or be the hero, then we will see how we can be helpful. Sometimes the showing up, oh, you wrote that, is a tangible way to convey to our sister they are important to us. But you like betrayal all the way back to high school. Is there anyone else that has wounds around sisterhood? I'm sure we all do, that they want to share. I would also like to invite Rosie to ask her question now. I've unmuted her if she had a comment before. Sorry, we're having technical difficulty. Rosie, you want to say something? How about you, Patricia? No, I guess not. Okay, I need to mute somebody. There we go. Okay. All right, we'll move back. I was just trying to get people to participate if they wanted to, and they raised their hand before. So bear with us, because I'm new at doing these hand raise things. Okay, so you've identified your wound. We want to go on to the next handout, right, Nirmala?
Yeah.
And I will pull it up and share my screen again.
And just to remind people, because I don't know if you all got a chance to look at the handouts, and it's totally fine if you didn't, you would have gotten this you would have gotten an email right after registering for the webinar, and the documents would have been in that. But we're also going to be sending a recording to everybody that is going to also include these documents. So don't worry if you can't find them, you will have them very soon.
Okay, so here's the next worksheet that obviously you can't do this all on our call right now, but I'd like to kind of go through it. We talked about why we need sisterhood. Based on our discussion and types of sisterhood wounds, what are your top 3? What really hit you? Because this is all about awareness. Okay, this is all about getting some clarity around what's up for you right now. And these wounds could be different this hour than it is tomorrow or in tomorrow morning, right? So really think about what's going on for you in your life right now, what's up for you, and what are your top 3 wounds? What has happened to you? What is the story, like Nirmala talked about, that you're telling yourself about these wounds? Because I think at different times in our lives, we're going to have different wounds that come up and are lessons for us to be able to learn from and really deepen into ourselves, because our relationship with ourselves is the most important, and those other relationships. I mean, I know, Nirmala and I have gone through that, right? We have, as friends, as sisters, we go through things, and I would say, Nirmala, we're pretty honest with each other. We're pretty direct.
Yeah, we are.
If we have any challenges, we say it. And, there's not a lot of taking it personally. We both have a shared understanding that truly, I give Nirmala the benefit of the doubt, and I feel like she does with me too. And we just meet each other where we are. And I think that's really important to do. And then Beth says, I keep thinking about my 16-year-old daughter and wonder how I could coach her on sisterhood so maybe she can avoid some of the wounds. benefit of the doubt and assume good intentions. I think that's wonderful. I think there's two things I want to say about that. And Nirmala, you can speak to it too. One, yes, I'd love to teach my young women in my life, anybody, the two women that work for me, my stepdaughter and my daughter. I'd love to teach them that, everybody has good intentions. I don't believe that's true all the time, to be honest, but I also know there's a lot of unconscious behavior out there, including what our kids do and what we do in our lives. Every human being does that. But I also don't want to dive into avoidance, Beth, because I think diving into avoidance removes the place of really looking at what's going on. And I think, yes, we can give them skill sets to address it and communicate effectively. That's why I have the hard conversations for young adults, right? We give them skill sets and tools to be able to hone their voice and communicate effectively, with the world. But avoidance isn't necessarily something I would ever recommend, if that makes sense. Erin, would you say anything to that?
Yeah, I agree. And I sorry about that. My internet is a little bit weird, but am I back?
Yeah,
Can you
you're
hear me?
back. Go ahead. What were you going to
Okay. Yeah. So what I was just going to say to that is I don't think it's so much about avoiding as it is about learning to work with and even transmute your wounds, because we all have wounds. And in a way, I've learned to look at the wounds that I have around sisterhood as aspects of myself that I need to really look at. Like whatever is happening, we have a tendency to kind of externalize it and be like, oh, it's about that person who did that thing to me. But a lot of times it's about stuff that I might need to look at within myself. Like parts of myself that I feel uncomfortable with, places if I'm experiencing betrayal on the outside. And I'm not saying this is always the case because I don't think that's true, but where are the places in myself where I've experienced self-betrayal? So I always think that sisterhood wounds are an opportunity for us to kind of like take our personal growth and awareness to the next level. And that's something that's really powerful. Just like, our challenges and our failures and all of those things are just opportunities for us to kind of like rise up in our lives
And
and
guess,
experience
I
growth.
love that you're saying that, because this is why you always provide such great information for me. Guess who our greatest sister is in this world for ourselves is us, right? It's us,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? So, what is our role in perpetuating these experiences? That's the next question we ask, because really, if you get an awareness of what your role is in all of this, it's really powerful if you can journal on this one question. Then those two questions are big. Like, what is your role in perpetuating these experiences? And the new story, like, what is the new story that you want to create? Now for the role, like, what's your role? It could be as simple as like taking self-responsibility
Mm-hmm.
but like for example, I've been distracted lately. I've had a lot of drama, not emotional drama, but people going through a lot around me, including myself, this last month. And I really stopped last week because I had a friend that was in crisis, and I was like, wait a minute, I haven't shown up for her. So I stopped, and we went for a walk, and I could feel her. She was hurting, and I stopped myself. And the next day I woke up and I called her. I said, do you have a moment to chat? And I said, hey, as much as I'm going through things, I want you to know I love you and I'm here for you. And I am distracted right now. And I just want to own that, I am here if you need me. And I think, catching ourselves in that unconscious behavior, even if it's that simple, is a great awareness to move forward in perpetuating the experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Another example is, I have a woman in an extended friend group that consciously or unconsciously likes to exclude me. And it's with my dearest friends. And it's been a real teaching for me, because it's not really, I've told myself the story that she doesn't like me. She doesn't want me to be part of the group. right? It's my little childhood wounds from when I was younger, moving around all the time. And it came up for me, and I'm like, what is this? Because this is not about this woman. This is about my story that I'm telling myself about her from when I was younger. And, then I went back and forth. I was like, "Whew, should I confront her? I don't even know her. Like, she doesn't know who I am. She knows the story she tells herself about me." And I decided to work it out within myself and be gracious, because it really was about me. It wasn't about her. And I insert myself when I want to be there now. And I try to just watch it and not blame her. So really taking that responsibility, not blaming others, I think is important. And telling yourself a new story is important as well. Um, Beth just wrote back, I was always learned. I know, Beth, you've always learned from the most wounds. I know that, right? Benefit of the doubt and best intentions is only for those who I've already identified as true sisters. I completely agree. And I love that, because we do need to give the benefit of the doubt to our true sisters, the ones that have shown up. I almost personally look at it as a bank. I have this bank, right? I have friends that have depleted the bank that I feel sucked off of, right? That I feel that, they're around, and I'm always like, why do I feel drained when they leave? Why are they always asking of me? And then I've got those friends that are going through a rough time and might be frustrating to deal with, but it's worth it. They're worth it to me. They have shown up, they have been there, we have connected. I think that's really important, to look at who
Mm-hmm.
those true sisters are, and have that loyalty. I mean, I know it's my value, Nirmala. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely feel the same way. And I think I've also just speaking to the whole piece about looking at your role in perpetuating experiences. It's not about it's not about blaming yourself either. It's not about becoming a martyr. And I think that just like that analogy, Kelly, that you made about the bank, and this is something we talk about a lot in our retreats, the power and importance of setting boundaries. So it isn't just about like absolutely letting everybody in your life into the inner circle and being everybody's best friend. You have to exercise discernment around the kinds of sisters who are in your life, because there might be just a few who are in the inner circle and who have the privilege of being there because you've put in the work together, they've earned the trust. And then there might be others that you might have to keep at arm's length, even though that can sometimes feel really weird, or you might feel guilty about it. You just really have to be able to trust yourself.
Yeah, I have a great teacher that told me, and I'm sure if Janice is still on it, she's heard it. Don't cast pearls before swine.
Mm-hmm.
Really have discernment and boundaries. That's one of the big things. Like, have some boundaries with people. And I also realized information doesn't equal intimacy, right? So when you're
Yeah.
connecting with someone, it's not like, let me tell you everything about myself so that we can be friends and love each other. Because you can connect with someone with no words, right?
Mm-hmm.
And feel deeply connected in an experience with them. It's the same way. A lot of times I just don't feel moved to share a lot about myself with someone new, even though I love them and I have this great connection right away. It has nothing to do with who Kelly is. It has to do with our hearts connecting and just being with one another, if that makes sense. So, and where are we? We've talked about this worksheet. Does anybody have any questions on this worksheet? Because what I'd like for you to do now is to write an intention, a new story about sisterhood that you want to create. And if you want to share it with the group, you can. And this is why this recording is going to so many people after. They can't share it with the group, but I think it's really powerful to be able to share what your new intention about your new story is. And Darcy put write your intention in the chat box if you're comfortable enough to share with everyone. If not, keep it to yourself. There's no rules here. Does anyone want to share an intention? And I'm trying to think of what my new intention will be with the story. My intention, just so everyone knows, just to give an example, I think about my best friend, and I think my intention is to always show up for a sister in crisis without questioning,
Hmm.
because it can't, it all it can do is support and help. So, Nirmala, do you have an intention?
Yeah, I think my intention is just around communication, because I think a lot of times it can be so easy to allow issues to kind of accumulate and resentment to set in. So my intention is to be really emotionally honest as issues arise, and to be willing to kind of clear the air immediately instead of letting resentments build.
I love that, because there's a lot of women I know in the retreats we've taught that have experienced what I've experienced around the ghosting piece, right? Like, my intensity can be so, for a person that they can create a story. um no, I'm not ready because I want them to see this, but they can create a story around who I am, and either they're scared or they don't want to deal with me. They just like go away. And there's a place where that makes you really shaky. It makes you go, whoa, like, do I need to be myself all the time? Or have I let the wrong person in? You go into self-judgment. You just can't. Everybody had, what made me understand it is like everybody has their own story about sisterhood and about what they want from a valued friend. And so obviously there are people that can't communicate effectively and need to walk away. And we can't take it personally when someone does that.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line. um Janice, did you hear what Janice said? Nirmala, you want to read that? Oh, she froze again. Janice said, my intention, thank you for asking, is to get an intention. So how can we help you to get an intention, Janice? Would we how can we support you to get an intention around sisterhood, or in what way? Would you like to talk? I'm happy to unmute you as soon as I can figure this out. Tell me if she said that's cool. Okay, hold on. Or you can unmute her. I didn't. I'm not sharing my screen anymore. Oh no, I am. Thank you, Janice. Allowed to talk. Okay, Janice, go ahead. Oh, unmute.
Unmute. Can you hear?
Yes. Hi, Janice.
Hey. Oh, hi. So yeah, for people who are busy, or people who haven't thought about it like me, I don't have an intention because I haven't thought about it. I didn't make any New Year's resolutions or anything like that. So listening to your talk today is getting my mind to think about that. So.
Oh, that's awesome. So your intention will be to create an intention. Now I got it. Right.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Janice. Nice to hear your voice.
You too.
Bye. For me. Okay. All right. So this is just the small worksheet we've given you. You will get this in another email if you don't have it now. But we've gone through the intention, and now I just want to talk to you a little bit about why this is so important, right? And Nirmala, do you want to start on that? Why is she muted?
Sorry, you broke up a little bit, so I didn't hear that last piece that you just said.
You want to talk about why this is so important? Am I breaking up? No. She's breaking up. Okay, well, I'll go for it. So why this, obviously we all know why this is so important. This is all about, and I promoted Janice to a panelist because I'm a tech challenge. So if you could help me, yeah. Okay, so if you can help me. So why this is so important is because we as women, as we've said before, are going to save the world, right? And we all need to come together, and we need to dive into the challenges we have, whether it be around competition, cattiness. I mean, I want to give an example, and I don't want to start a big conversation here about this, but I watched the Super Bowl this weekend, and I watched all of the women after the Super Bowl that had such a huge reaction to J-Lo and Shakira. And I watched it. I witnessed it. Okay. Oh, thanks, Beth. And so I watched it and I watched it and I thought about it and I was like, I felt uncomfortable, but I'm also an incest survivor and I'm not comfortable with my sexuality. But then I thought about these women. They're in their power. They're doing their job. They're Hispanic and Latino. Okay. So they're in Miami. And I also love Sheila Kelly and I've done pole dancing, right? So I've done all these things and I know we as women can come into our power. And then I watched all of these women on social just tear them down. And I got really sad because I thought, this is what the world does to us as a gender. They have us attack each other. And even if you don't agree and you think it wasn't good family values or whatever you want to say about the Super Bowl, watching the act of women attacking these women in their power and their beauty and their sensuality really disheartened me. And it made me realize that more than ever, we all have to have a place where we can come together, discuss our differences, and I actually, Dr. Christian Northup posted about it and I wrote something back and then people didn't agree with me, people in my community, which is kind of funny, like in my small town, they kind of jumped on me there, which I laughed because it was on Dr. Northup's, Facebook. But it was interesting because what they said was, how dare you? This is family values. I don't agree. And I mean, I get that there are young girls being sold off. I get that there are women being abused. I'm one of them. Okay. And I love the discussion. I love the respectful discussion and back and forth where we can all support one another and disagreeing instead of judging, competing, and being angry and making other women bad. Because there's just no place for that in this world right now. We as women have got to come together and support one another. And I don't want to go on about cheerleading about it too much, but that's why we're doing these sisterhood webinars and why we want to write a sisterhood book. Because, Nirmal and I were out there looking when we were researching to write this book. There's not a lot of sisterhood books. I'm shocked. I was shocked. Like I just went and saw Little Women. I was shocked that there weren't more like thousands of sisterhood books. We ordered a few to read through, right, Nir? There weren't any.
And it was so hard for us to find any. I mean, we found a lot of stuff that was about like toxic relationships between women and so the sisterhood wound, which is really important to talk about. But even then, there really weren't as many resources out there. So yeah,
women are yearning for this. They're yearning for connection. They're yearning to look at like their relationship with their mother. I mean, there's some books on the motherhood, which we all have on some level, but I just would love, and Nirmal and I would both love, for you to send us ideas on what you want to dive into around sisterhood, whether it be more wounds and how we kind of dissect them and move forward. Tools to be able to effectively communicate with another sister when there's a challenge, which is all about our hard conversations, right? Because if we can be transparent and vulnerable, we can conquer the world. Women are so freaking powerful, as you know. I'm preaching to the choir, but how do we not be in competition mode, and be catty, and be known as gossiping all the time, right? I mean, how do we move into transparent truth telling, which is vulnerable and powerful? All of those things we'd love to dive into in different Facebook groups or webinars like this. If you're interested, let us know. All right, what do we have next, Nir?
Our retreats, our upcoming retreats.
Yeah.
So basically, and I think, well, Beth was at Your Messy Brilliance retreat last year, so she can definitely speak to how much fun this is. But this is the piece around what Kelly was saying about the importance of us having face-to-face connection, being with one another, face-to-face as we're going through our transformation and our growth, as we're sharing from that place of like deep vulnerability and just really, really our raw power. So we do have our next retreat, which is coming up in just a few weeks. We're calling it Your Messy Brilliance 2.0 because it's the second annual Your Messy Brilliance retreat. And that's going to be March 12th through 15th in Redmond, Washington. And this one is going to be a little bit longer. I believe this one is 4 nights.
3 nights, but
is it 3 nights? Mm-hmm. Okay, 4 days. Yes, but it's a day longer than we did last year because there's so much to get into, so many things to explore. And with this particular retreat, we're doing things a little bit differently. We're talking about the power of transformation and really just like, what does it mean to dive into the next chapter of our lives and to actually experience the transformation that we're here for? I mean, we are all caterpillars that are waiting to turn into butterflies. And so in this retreat, we're going to walk you through our 7 phases of transformation and what that looks like and how you can move through that with as much grace and grit as possible. And also take your sisters with you, because this isn't just like a one woman like climbing Mount Everest on her own type of thing. We're all in it together, and it's about learning how to move through transformation with grace and grit, not alone, but in a community of sisters. And that's what this retreat is going to give you. Really just a community of sisters that is going to be around for a lot longer than those 4 days. And I think Beth can attest to that.
And Beth, would you mind just saying your experience for a minute or two? Do you mind?
I would say that I can speak on behalf of myself and one of the other participants who happens to be my best friend, that we both felt that this retreat was the most truly transformative on a foundational level for who we are as individuals, but also for our friendship collectively moving forward together. And it was a perfect balance between all of the things that go into a holistic experience, from the self-care, from the feeling cared about, feeling cared for, feeling safe, just a wonderful diversity of types of activities and experiences that I would be there in a heartbeat if it was possible.
Oh, Beth, thank you so much. We
That's
loved
awesome.
having you there, and you got to, speak at the tour after. You've just been amazing, you and Kim. It was wonderful to have you. I want my best friend to come. She needs it now. It'd be awesome to have her come too. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
So we also have our Omega retreat as well that we're doing October 4th through the 9th in Rhinebeck, New York at the Omega Institute. If you've never been there, check it out. We're excited because this is about sisterhood, like we talked about at the beginning. So we cannot wait to do that. And I do want to also say, we will be sending you, and we gave you the code here, the 30% off code YMB Web for the retreat. And, some people have told me like the price is hard for some of them to be able to address this, but this is like really inexpensive at the Redmond Marriott. And we give you food. We give you so much for this. We're not like trying to make a lot of money off this. We're trying to make it at least feasible to do so that we can pay for our expenses, because we love doing this retreat. And it really is like you fall into this cocoon, the safe space, and we take care of you for 4 days. And you come out, I think, revived. It's not like you're exhausted at the end. There are some emotional processes, but I would say, you come out feeling like ready to conquer whatever you want to conquer in the world with a new sisterhood. Because I know our the first retreat group still keeps in touch, which is so cool. So anything else around that, Nirmala?
No, just that we definitely encourage you to, if you can make it to the retreat in March, we still have spaces. We'd love to see you there. And if you happen to be on the East Coast, and if you're around in October, definitely come to our retreat at Omega. This one's really special because we had originally applied, I think, to do a weekend retreat. And then they came back and they were like, the topic is on sisterhood. And we have so much to say about sisterhood that we didn't even get a chance to get into tonight. And they were so excited about it that they said, well, can you actually make it a longer retreat? Would you be able to come and do it for 5 days? And we were like, okay. Yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of material. So that's going to be really powerful and exciting. So if you are out east, or know anyone who is, we will definitely have some more details for you in the very near future. So that is coming up, and that's something to put on your calendar if you want to dive even deeper into sisterhood.
So we want to thank all of you for being here. And what I'd like to do at the end, we'll be sending you a follow-up email with the recording, right, Darcy? And we'll put the documents on there again with the code. But I'd like you, for just a minute and a half, because we've gone a little over, to close your eyes, and I'd like to read this feminine thread so we can take this. There's a reading for my book about the feminine thread that I would love for each of you to take out into the world and take your own vision of it. So if you want to take a deep breath and close your eyes. Many of us are only now remembering that we are the living embodiment of the powerful feminine principle, which is all about courage, compassion, beauty, connection, sensuality, and above all, truth. Indeed, your story, your truth, is forever intertwined in the beautiful, chaotic ball of yarn that is life itself. Whether those stories are of struggle or hope, joy or loss, self-discovery, or a voyage into the unknown. What's more, a single thread, simultaneously delicate and resilient, weaves in and out of that ball of yarn, creating unity and coherence, connection and meaning. I call this the feminine thread. I began to envision this thread whenever I talk to a woman. In connecting with her one-on-one, I also connected to a larger vision of sisterhood that encompassed all places and times. In this vision, women from all walks of life held hands, a picture of solidarity and unbreakable love that spanned as far as the eye could see. And every time I saw this, I knew it was so much more than a vision my imagination had concocted. It was more like a cosmic revelation of something that is so, so very real. We are an integral part of this powerful, everlasting thread that teems with pure life energy, that connects all women through the ages, and that also has the capacity to heal past and future generations. It is our moral imperative to fully own our place in the world as mothers, daughters, sisters, lovers, and weavers of the feminine. Sorry, I'm just and weavers of the feminine thread that binds us and everything else together. You are not alone, so take heart and be courageous. The world needs us. It needs you in all your beauty, your joy, your pain, your passion, your intrinsic wholeness, and your messy brilliance. More than anything, it needs you to dive into your brilliance and own every single part of it. That is the feminine thread. So thank you all so much for being here. It's been so wonderful, and we have so much more to talk about. We've just touched on it. I hope the worksheets help you, and we look forward to hearing from each of you on what kind of themes and topics we can talk about around sisterhood and nurturing and creating that beautiful, powerful connection and community that we all yearn for. Thank you very much. Neeram, you got anything to say at the end?
I'm just, yeah, this is such amazing. It's such an amazing time to be in, to be exploring sisterhood. So I really hope that we get a chance to see some of you in person. And just thank you so much for being with us. And yeah, we couldn't do this without you.
Yeah, thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.